Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Sung An, Head of Managed Services for Andela, and I'm thrilled to be here as your host for today's webinar. For those of you who missed it, last month we had a great time hosting with our client, a major global media company, who shared some pretty cutting-edge GenAI objectives in their space, including details of their LLM and techniques they were using with us at Andela. But why did 61% of folks in that webinar interested in starting that GenAI project say they haven't even taken their first step yet? That was an alarming number to us. So this month, we're going to try to address that at a more macro level and try to change that with you by sharing with you some more practical use cases that are easier to start with, some design thinking tools, data-driven methods, and talent teams you need to get that GenAI project off the ground. So before we get to that conversation, though, let's quickly cover some housekeeping items. Please be sure to type your questions in the Q&A. We're going to take questions at the end, no problem. We will send the recording of today's content as well after today's live event. And you'll see in the resources section, you're actually going to have some ready-to-use one-page downloads as well that you guys can use and take with you. And lastly, please take that brief survey at the end. It really helps shape our content for future. So let me start by introducing my esteemed guest here. Chris Chilton is our head of practices and partnership. He has over 25 years of data and consulting experience and has been our executive sponsor, driving force, the fueling our generative AI initiatives. So he works hand in hand, right, with our clients to help identify and prioritize those use cases and build those teams to deliver on their needs. Chris, I know you're a really busy guy. Thanks for making some time for us today.
Oh, thank you, Sung. Happy to be here, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Of course. Well, we have a packed agenda here as we need to unravel the magic incantation that is generative AI a little bit better, right, to help those who are a bit earlier in that process. Look, not everyone has a $10 million budget like Microsoft or a machine learning university at Amazon to upskill their employees. But let's make this crystal clear. Right? Launching GenAI in your company is very much in reach. This innovation train, whatever's holding you back, has an innovation train powered by new LLM models in your industry that are being fine-tuned and getting better every week. So with the right team and the right approach, which we'll share in here a little bit, there's no reason why you can't, like our other clients, find a use case where you can save up to 80% of time on researching and drafting documents through GenAI. Imagine all those hours reclaimed for strategic tasks, yeah? So Chris, let's get right to it.
All right, sounds good.
Where have you seen GenAI work the best?
Yeah, so I'd say the best place to start your journey is working with the use case that is right in the wheelhouse of large language models. So we kind of started our journey with a client to build scalable architecture and managing millions of PDFs and other forms of unstructured data for this particular legal company. The business case here was to save hundreds of manual hours of scanning and reviewing the documents to produce letters and legal findings off that, massive amounts of unstructured data. And in this particular case, we actually used ChatGPT, which worked really well on summarizing those large amounts of data and creating content and enabling the conversation through prompts. But we quickly discovered at the same time, most of our time was spent in designing and choosing the right cloud architecture and determine how to properly build the prompts to really ask those, right questions to get the right results and the right responses from ChatGPT on all those millions of documents.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. Did it really take that many documents to start off with? I mean, that sounds like a lot of documents.
Yeah, it is a lot of documents, clearly. But what we did is we took like a couple cases or one or two cases, which was about 20,000 documents. And we built an architecture and then measured the results off of that and then showed that ability to scale. So as what the number showed us is that we were building the right architecture to be able to scale that to moving forward. In that case, there was about 250,000 changes to those documents also that they would make, on a daily basis.
So it didn't sound like you had to start with too much upstart, and I'm sure you had to assemble the right team to kind of make that happen. So
yeah, the team was that's one of the big learnings right there, Sung. You nailed it. Is just assembling that right team to put that together, and that really enabled us to learn and test and build the right team, and using that going forward. So that kind of takes me to the next use case, right? So kind of fast forwarding where we are today, we've now experimented with many different LLMs and models, and really, frankly, have a really strong understanding of the proper architecture and how to properly kind of test and fine tune those models. A use case that we're working right now with a large media company is text to image and creation of images from text using Stable Diffusion. There's actually many websites you can try it for yourself, like Midjourney. That might be the most well-known one. But this is where deep learning models can generate the high-res images consistent with your prompt. Again, back to prompting. It's super important that you configure the right prompt, engineer the right prompt. By modifying that prompt and getting super specific, the images that you can create, can be developed in a fraction of the time than what it normally takes anyone to really develop and create themselves. So yeah, that's a fun one. Sung, any other things you have, any other questions you have, what other examples kind of are you seeing out there in the space?
Yeah, no, I like the use cases you already cited, right? The creative design content piece of it, that's huge. Documentation summarization, it's pretty powerful stuff there. And like you said, easy to start with. What I've seen also is kind of more in the, hyper personalization space and utility functions like question and answer. For instance, even us at Andela, we've got products as well. And, our talent portal, for those who aren't as familiar, is a cloud platform where you can manage the whole global talent lifecycle, source, qualifier, hire, manage, and pay. And that actually underneath is actually driven by AI. Of course, we have an amazing matching team that has to match and assess based on more soft skills. But that's kind of where the next kind of journey is for us, right? Is to see how we can have some of these skill sets and interviews be done through more of a form-driven, right, UX Q&A type process with GenAI. Which, if you think about it, Chris, that could save so much time for the matcher so that they can focus on other strategic items as well. And just, that 96% success rate, we're super proud of that, but that might even get higher than that if that's even possible, right? So
yeah, it's really cool to see the external consulting team coming together with the internal teams to develop the same kind of concepts within our tools and our products that we would develop for others.
Yeah, and to everybody else too. That's just for us, but it's very, I'm sure everyone uses Salesforce, Workday, right? There's a bunch of other products in there that I'm sure people have internally. That's a very good way to start and kind of earn that trust, right? And get that buy-in, because it's easy to quantify. And so, for us, it's all about building that muscle, right? Start off with an easier engagement so that you can get that confidence, you got the right team built, and then start tackling some of the more harder tasks or the harder asks in business use cases. That's key. Start narrow and build up. But look, let's take a little break here. I'm curious. Take a quick poll, see what others here are thinking about. Let's pop up that poll for everybody. Yeah, so if everyone could take a quick the end of the year, and then we'll kind of, Chris, see what people say.
What do you think here, son? I was going to say documentation probably to start, and then summarization. It's interesting. We got data extraction coming.
Yeah.
Content creation. No documentation yet.
Surprised that I know we haven't talked about programming, but that's a key one as well. GitHub is one of our really pretty big clients that we have worked with a while, and they've come out with Copilot, their product. That's a huge game changer.
Yeah, for sure. It is popping. Programming's up there.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Good.
I didn't scroll down on my thing. Now I see programming there is high. That's good.
And of course, your example on content creation. Look, I think it's important that we shared some of our thoughts to initiate some confidence. That's kind of what we want to bring out with people. But I think, once you kind of go through some relative use cases there, Chris, help us suggest the next step here. Every org is a little bit different, right? How do you get started?
Yeah, happy to, Sung. We have outlined a 4-step process, and clearly, every organization is going to approach this differently. You're gonna fine tune this to your ways of working. But we definitely have steps to encourage you to kind of follow. Which obviously the first step is you got to reach out to your organization and find what those appropriate use cases are, and then prioritize those use cases against prioritize them and refine them to be able to attach a business case to it that validates kind of your investment and build a corresponding ROI. Thirdly, I think you validate this against your customer journey, making certain that it matches it's right in line with the experience that you're looking for your customers. And last but not least, define how you're going to measure your success, right? So you can continue your efforts. You want that buy-in so that you can keep doing more of it. So by the way, feel free to go to a resource center and download materials from today. So what we're going to do is kind of take a next step and dive into some specific steps. I just mentioned the first step is collecting company use cases, right? One way you can do that is through a survey that really kind of hones in on where you need to go. And with the survey, you can start your data-driven decision-making process and really kind of get input from your relevant stakeholders. And speaking of stakeholders, definitely we encourage defining an AI steering committee made up of champions throughout your organization that can really hone in and identify and get to really problem solving around those business problems and making sure everybody's clear on the scope and clear on what you're doing as an organization. So by having advocates across the business, people who can operate as a steering committee, you'll get that buy-in across your entire organization and get that transformation that you want and see that change. And honestly, it's not a whole lot different from how you decide anything else today, except for the fact that the hard part here is around not everyone knows concepts like LLMs and GenAI, and more than likely you don't have all the skills, you're lacking skills. So this is probably new to you as leaders in your organization, that you may not even feel up to speed yourself, and then like you are with other things you do. So I think that's one of the things that you need to make sure that you're aware of, is like that might be where that lack of trust is coming from, just because you may not have the right skills nor the right ideas and the right knowledge of these products and what they can offer. So thoughts on that, Sung? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think you're pretty spot on. And I think I saw some people asking some questions, which we'll definitely answer at the end here. We'll stick around. But yeah, the only thing I'll add to your point is, not knowing everything about AI's capability. That's crucial, right? To get the best use cases, you need everyone to chip in. And I think I love your survey idea. But the operators at the end of the day are probably going to be the people that have the most info and the best use cases. So I like thinking of AI and explaining to people as, simply put, think of AI as someone who's learned English or how to speak, but in like this featureless square room, right? It has no context outside of that, instead of what it's been trained on, all the data that's been put in by the LLMs, and then the context that keeps getting added in, right? The images you talked about earlier, now it's not just text, it's audio, it's video, right? And then it does its best job to imitate and guess, what a person would say in that role or in a situation based on probability, So, think of that image of Johnny Number 5 from the movie Short Circuit, going through all those encyclopedias off the shelf and throwing them over their head. That's kind of what the LLM is doing in essence, and you're the one in control of telling it what instructions and what context you want to give it within your domain knowledge. And I think that's where it's really powerful for companies, right? Whereas consumers have to leverage public, ChatGPT, but companies can do it in a secure way now, which we're helping with, where they can feed it emails, chats, Salesforce, right? And create these amazing bots or GenAI platforms where they can add their brand, right? Their culture, add in your handbook for your company, and then hyper personalize and create really amazing workflows. So anyways, explaining AI in that context within your company, I think is super important so that people understand. And then they're going to get really eager to feed you those really awesome best use cases, right? Things that leadership may not even realize is possible. So let's take just a quick break here. I did want to see what goals are most important for our audience as well. And maybe we can kind of banter a little bit about that, Chris, as we kind of see what's important for people from a business context, from a business lens.
Yeah, definitely. I think this one, right, is going to depend on where you are kind of in the life cycle. So, if you haven't innovated with it yet, you're probably going to want to, I think AI capability is going to pop.
Yeah, understanding of AI for sure.
Oh, look, productivity. We talked about this before the webinar. We said productivity is probably going to be a big one. It's good.
And I do think that finding ways to cut costs, of course, is going to be the obvious thing. But I kind of see it as a way to increase productivity, exactly like you said.
Yeah.
Generating revenue. That's a good one.
So 90% of the audience right there said increased productivity was one of the choices. Yeah, that's good. And Sung, your use case, I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Internally, is how do we get that productivity increased using the tools at hand. And it's not always about necessarily it's not about necessarily replacing jobs, things like that. I mean, we can reutilize talent in different ways, and we can come up with new creative ways of doing things because other things are getting done faster and automatic. Now people can go off and explore new, techniques and new areas to build on.
Yeah, and look, increasing productivity may not be the sexiest thing to start with, right? But like I said earlier, it is the easiest, most measurable thing to do to start with, and then gain that trust. I keep hearing this in organizations. You have to earn trust with AI within your organization, right? And that's a great way to get that kickstarted. So look, on to the next, just kind of another tool. I think look, the old saying goes, if only the tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail, right? Well, GenAI is a pretty cool hammer. So, if you've kind of gone through those business use cases, I love the survey idea you're talking about, Chris. You got to crowdsource that idea within your organization. But another tool you can use is a customer journey map, right? Look for opportunities within your customer journey map, have a clear one, and stay focused on the client. Is there a revenue generation idea potentially that GenAI could attribute to? Are there personalization aspects of our customer journey that could improve? Like right now, rate things, right? We're having a negative experience here in the service part, where people access FAQs or self-help documents, right? And that's a perfect use case that you can present as an area in which AI could be a good first project to start with. So, and then build the business case like you talked about before talking about the technology. Don't even, the algorithms and the technology is there now. That's the beauty of this. Start off with generating some really solid ideas, rank and rate, and then get some clear metrics going, right? So on that, again, I'm not going to go through all of these. We're going to share a lot of them with people afterwards, but some GenAI specific metrics are going to start to come out. Once you have a really solid business use case and you get going on that POC, things like how can a workflow be sped up through AI? What are some of the costs that the CFOs are going to be interested in, right? What am I getting into, right? Those calculators are all out there now, right? You can calculate if you go with a hosted solution like ChatGPT, which is token based versus maybe a private solution where you're just hosting a VM and you got an open LLM sitting on top of it, then you're just paying for runtime costs of the VM, right? So these things are becoming a lot more clear now and able to be presented.
Yeah, and I will say something right there. A lot of all the models have different flavors of their model, right? How many parameters are trained on? So each model will run faster or slower depending on a lot of different variables. So, and they may cost or not, or they may cost more or less depending on what your use case is. So again, it's about iterating and testing, and continually testing and trialing different things so that so your group, your AI group that you have can get really familiar with the models, because they're constantly coming out every single day. This webinar is going to be outdated tomorrow, right? So it's like these things are constantly evolving, getting updated, and we gotta jump on the train, basically, right?
Yeah. So on that, Chris, new technologies like this always breed also new skills.
That's right.
What do you think clients should prepare for that on that end?
Yeah, like you just said, as the AI processes further mature and evolve, there are roles developing. Don't lose sight of those details and kind of make the that will make the models useful. It's just not the models themselves either. The whole ecosystem, supporting ecosystem around it is morphing and modifying and growing, and that's getting fine tuned. So but as far as roles go, I mean, you're definitely going to still need data scientists. And the good news there is that even though you've got these data scientists and you're wondering, like, wait a minute, these are LLMs, that these are the models that this is a model that they would have maybe built in the past. They'll come to speed really quick on what they need to do with those LLMs. That's what our experience is. It's like a good data scientist is always going to come to speed like really quickly on the techniques and everything around that, and the fine tuning required around these models and where they fit. But depending on the use case, you'll probably need like LLM deployment engineers, data engineers, and even software developers. And what I would encourage us to do there is to make sure that that team, if you will, is kind of part of the beginning of the project, because the team now needs to think about how is a product or how is an application or something you're doing AI first, and how does that translate, and how does that work as the various members on the team are supporting it, and what their role is, because they're going to have to be aware of those processes as well and what the outputs will be. Then taking it one step further, you're also going to realize that you're going to need some specialists with some titles like we've already said it multiple times: prompt engineer. As soon as that hit the market, prompt engineer, you could do a job search and find prompt engineer positions being sought after. So as I mentioned earlier, the code written for LLMs they're written in prompt, so that's that new opportunity. And then as it continues to evolve, you're looking at AI content designers, like even like ethical engineers, because are the models are they starting to produce some things that an ethical engineer should probably be monitoring and watching. Then you've got like AI auditors and security engineers. Those are just examples of some of them that are actually emerging. You're seeing them hit the market. So with that, Sung, you kind of want to recap on what we've got so far? We're getting tight on time here, of course.
Yeah, I know. It almost feels like we don't have enough time right when we're getting into it. But you're right. Prompt engineering is something that we're a talent cloud gets asked a lot, and we have a pool of around that we can help discuss with people. But look, relevant use cases, which we discussed a little bit earlier. That's key to kind of create that story internally. Then you got the way design thinking works, right? Coming through with some backup in terms of tools that you can use to help, create those ideas and confirm them beforehand. And like you said, look, you got to have the right team and the engineers in place to start thinking about how to design those prompts. Is it feasible, and what have you? And that's basically a very quick roundup, a design sprint that you can run through, easy to do. But look, the team is not, needs to be a good team, right? And these LLMs are very complex in nature. Once standing them up is, you're going to need that guidance. You're going to need that guidance, like you said, with a data scientist in terms of, picking the right LLMs, discussing the strategy behind it. And those are things that we're excited about to talk with people. But you know, Chris, any last words? Because I do want to save some time for some questions here at the end here. Any last advice
Yeah.
for our audience? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll wrap up that real quick, I guess. So, three words: test, test, test. Some use cases just won't even see the light of day, but continually test on it, continue to improve your prompting, and identify use cases early and fine tune those use cases. Make sure you have a testable use case and one that you can action against. And I'd say the exploratory culture is really important, right? Give the team room to explore. Solicit for your room to explore. We're all learning together, and just getting started is the hard part. But you may need to lean on some external partners to get you started, and then convince and yourself and everyone else, embrace this change. We're seeing, like I said, we're seeing kind of that entire ecosystem kind of come together in different products and tools, kind of sitting on this this Gen AI platform, if you will, that are coming to market. It's happening, and right before our eyes. So, yeah, I think we have
I think
we're on this.
yeah, we're just at the tip of the iceberg here with GenAI, but the point is we're trying to impress upon everyone that you can start. There is a area, you have the data, your data is there. It's just finding that right opportunity with some of these tool sets we talked about, and then starting that with the right approach and team. Chris, before we take questions really quick though, Andela was founded, for people that aren't familiar. Brilliance is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. So we've built a diverse global talent marketplace, which is now approaching 200,000 skilled engineers from around the world, in talent pools that are untapped for enterprises that they haven't been into, like the continent of Africa, and of course, Latin America and other places. It's powered by that talent cloud, which I mentioned earlier, entire lifecycle, making it fast and easy to source, qualify, hire, deliver, and pay talent across borders. And finally, we're known for our flexible delivery models, right? You can hire individual data scientists, hire a full team, ML ops engineers, cloud engineers as well, which are necessary, and backend engineers, and including front engineers when you want to design that UX experience. We've served a lot of 600 clients, and again, we're excited to be here and help people through this journey. Chris, do you want to also talk about maybe our Gen AI impact assessment to kind of, take it to the next step?
Yeah, sure. As we were getting into this, we saw the need to offer to our customers kind of a 6-week assessment. And our impact assessment it's a tailor-made program that focuses on identification and realization of your Gen AI business solution. We stand up a completely managed team as part of this, of experts like I just kind of gave you. To ensure the success of the program from start to finish, and then even through to once you get your POC, through to taking that into like a production mode. The proof of concept can demonstrate the potential impact and proposed use cases. We definitely work with organizations on those use cases. So yeah, so Sung, should we take some questions now in our final 2 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, we can. So let's take one really quick one here. We're up on time. Chris, maybe you could take this one. What are some obstacles that you've seen businesses face when working with Gen AI tools?
Well, yeah. Well, one of the things I think I kind of mentioned on the obstacles are definitely, which model works for which case. Huge obstacle, right? And that's why you got to be able to consider, failing quick. And yes, we have timelines, we have deadlines. We have to commit to those, but we also need to make sure the right model's chosen. And people may not agree on the right model, so you have to agree on that measurement side. How are we going to measure the effectiveness of this? Is it cost? Is it speed? Because you're going to have to make some decisions there around, do I want something that's very performant, or do I want to lower my cost a little bit? And so different models and then different flavors of those models are going to be what helps you to, or are going to be decisions you have to make. Other obstacles are certainly, what's the architecture to support that use case, and then you do have a funding obstacle, right? how do we allocate budget to this, knowing that we're going to save money in the future, but it's something that we haven't iterated on. This is new to us. So that's definitely another obstacle. And then how do you create? Do you create like an innovation lab to address that and be able to innovate on it? So,
Chris, I do want to thank you for a really great conversation this morning. Thank you. Hope to see everyone else next month.
Thank you.